The moment I realized my own parents valued their son's ego more than my entire existence was the moment I decided to burn their perfect family fantasy to the ground. And watching them panic when they finally understood what I'd done, that was the sweetest revenge I could ever imagine. My name is Tina, and this is the story of how I escaped the most suffocating, soul-crushing family dynamic you could possibly imagine. A family where I was nothing more than an accessory to my brother Tyler's golden child narrative, where my achievements meant nothing, where my voice was silenced, where my pain was dismissed, until the day I decided I'd had enough. It started over something so ridiculous, so pathetically small, that when I tell you what it was, you'll understand just how insane my family situation had become. Tyler, my older brother by 2 years, had borrowed my laptop without asking. Again, this was a pattern with him. He'd take my things, use them, sometimes break them, and my parents would just shrug and tell me to share. Because that's what good sisters do, right? They sacrifice everything for their precious brothers. But this time was different. This time, he didn't just borrow it. He went through my private files, found a college essay I'd been working on, an essay about our family dynamics and how difficult it was growing up in Tyler's shadow. It was raw, honest, painful. It was my truth. And he showed it to our parents like it was evidence of my betrayal. The explosion that followed was nuclear. My mother cried like I'd physically assaulted her. My father's face turned this deep shade of red I'd only seen a few times in my life, usually before he unleashed his worst anger. And Tyler stood there with this smug, satisfied smirk on his face like he'd just won the lottery. They called it disrespectful. They called it ungrateful. They called it a betrayal of family trust. Nobody asked me why I felt that way. Nobody asked if my feelings were valid. Nobody cared that Tyler had violated my privacy by going through my personal files. All that mattered was that I had dared to speak a truth they didn't want to acknowledge. The punishment was swift and absolute. I was denied access to my father's home office, the only quiet space in our house where I could study effectively. My room was above the garage, and the noise from the automatic door and my mother's constant TV watching made it impossible to concentrate. I'd been using Dad's office every evening for years to do homework, work on college applications, prepare for exams. It was essential to my academic success. But now, access denied. Until I apologized to Tyler for writing those horrible, untrue things about him and our family. Until I got down on my knees, metaphorically speaking, and begged forgiveness from the golden child who could do no wrong. They expected tears. They expected pleading. They expected me to break down and apologize within hours, maybe a day at most, because that's what I'd always done before. I'd always been the one to smooth things over, to apologize even when I wasn't wrong, to sacrifice my dignity to keep the peace. Not this time. I looked at my father, standing there with his arms crossed, that self-righteous expression on his face. I looked at my mother, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. I looked at Tyler, that disgusting smirk still plastered across his face, so confident that I'd cave like I always did. And I said nothing. Absolutely nothing. I just turned around and walked to my room, closed the door quietly, and sat down at my desk. The silence I left behind must have been deafening, because I could hear them whispering urgently in the living room, confused by my lack of reaction. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk with my backup laptop, the one they didn't know about, the one I'd bought with money from my part-time job specifically because Tyler kept taking my things, and I started planning. See, what my parents didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for months, not this specific situation, but something like it. I'd been documenting every instance of favoritism, every time my achievements were downplayed while Tyler's mediocre accomplishments were celebrated like he'd cured cancer. Every time my needs were dismissed while his wants were treated as urgent necessities. I had emails from my school counselor expressing concern about my home situation. I had screenshots of text messages from Tyler mocking me, belittling me. Messages my parents had seen and dismissed as sibling teasing. I had report cards showing my straight A's compared to Tyler's C's and B's. Yet somehow, he always got the bigger rewards, the more enthusiastic praise. I'd also been researching my options. I knew that our state had provisions for students in difficult home situations. I knew that I could apply for early emancipation or request a transfer to live with another family member. I'd been in contact with my aunt, my mother's sister, who lived 3 states away, and had always been concerned about how I was treated at home. But more than that, I'd been accepted to a prestigious boarding school with a full scholarship. I'd applied secretly, never mentioning it to my parents, because I knew they'd either sabotage it or claim credit for it. The acceptance letter had arrived 2 weeks ago, hidden in my locker at school. I had until the end of the month to confirm my enrollment. This situation with Tyler, with the office, with the forced apology, it was just the final push I needed to make my decision. Over the next 3 days, I maintained my silence. I went to school, came home, did my homework in my noisy room with headphones on, ate dinner without speaking, unless directly addressed, and gave short, polite answers when necessary. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't apologize. Tyler loved it. He thought he'd finally broken me. He'd make these little comments at dinner, passive-aggressive digs about respect and family loyalty. My parents would nod approvingly, thinking this was some kind of learning moment for me. The delusion was almost impressive. What they didn't see was what I was doing at school. I was systematically emptying my locker, bringing home small amounts of personal items each day so nobody would notice. I was having quiet conversations with my counselor, my favorite teachers, getting recommendation letters finalized. I was in constant contact with my aunt, who was preparing the spare bedroom in her house, and consulting with lawyers about the legal aspects of my situation. I was finishing my transfer paperwork for the boarding school, scanning documents, filling out forms, preparing everything, so that when I was ready to submit, it would take exactly 1 click. The anger that fueled me during those days was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was cold, focused, crystal clear. This wasn't the hot, explosive anger of a tantrum or an argument. This was the deep, burning rage of someone who'd been pushed too far for too long. Someone who'd finally realized that the people who were supposed to love and protect her unconditionally had failed her in every possible way. Every night, I'd lie in bed and think about all the times they'd chosen Tyler over me. The time I made honor roll, and they barely acknowledged it, because Tyler had made the basketball team. The time I won a regional writing competition, and they missed the ceremony because Tyler had a game. The time Tyler crashed my car, the one I'd saved for and bought myself, and they made me apologize to him for letting him drive it without proper instruction. The pain was physical. It felt like something heavy sitting on my chest, making it hard to breathe. These were my parents. They were supposed to be my safe place, my advocates, my supporters. Instead, they were my jailers, more concerned with maintaining their fantasy of the perfect family than acknowledging the real, suffering human being right in front of them. On the 4th day, I made my final preparations. I came home from school and went straight to my room. I pulled out the large duffel bag I'd hidden in my closet and started carefully packing my most important belongings. Clothes, documents, my laptop, hard drives with all my schoolwork and personal files, photographs of my grandparents who'd passed away, the few pieces of jewelry that actually meant something to me. I left behind anything they'd given me recently. Birthday presents from the last few years, Christmas gifts, anything that felt tainted by their conditional love. I wanted nothing from them except my freedom. That evening at dinner, Tyler was particularly obnoxious. He'd gotten a B on some test, and my parents were acting like he'd won a Nobel Prize. Meanwhile, I'd gotten a perfect score on my AP chemistry exam, but I didn't bother mentioning it. What would be the point? Still not ready to apologize? Tyler asked me, that infuriating smirk on his face. Must be hard doing all your studying in that noisy room. Maybe if you just admitted you were wrong, Dad would let you back in the office. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. He was so confident in his position, so secure in his belief that he was superior, that he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. I have nothing to apologize for, I said quietly. It was the first time I'd directly addressed the situation since it started. My father's face hardened. Tina, your attitude is unacceptable. Tyler is your brother. You wrote cruel, unfair things about him, invaded his privacy by putting family business in an essay, and you refused to take responsibility. Until you apologize sincerely, the office remains off limits. The irony of him accusing me of invading privacy when Tyler had literally gone through my private files was almost funny. Almost. Okay, I said simply, and continued eating. My mother looked frustrated. Tina, sweetheart, why are you being so stubborn? Just say you're sorry, and we can move past this. Don't you want things to go back to normal? Normal. Like the way things were was normal. Like being a second-class citizen in my own home was normal. Like watching my brother get everything while I got scraps was normal. I'm fine with how things are, I lied. I finished dinner in silence while they exchanged confused, irritated looks. They really thought I'd break. They really believed I needed them more than they needed me to maintain their perfect family illusion. That night, I sent the email. I clicked submit on my boarding school enrollment confirmation. I finalized the arrangements with my aunt. I drafted an email to my school counselor, explaining that I'd be transferring and requesting that my records be prepared for release. The next morning, I woke up early. I took my duffel bag and quietly loaded it into my car, the car I'd bought with my own money that they somehow still thought they had authority over. I drove to school and parked in my usual spot. In my locker, I'd left one thing, a large envelope. Inside was a letter to my parents, copies of my boarding school acceptance and enrollment confirmation, and a notice that I'd be moving in with my aunt until the school year started. I'd also included copies of all the documentation I'd gathered over the months, every piece of evidence of their favoritism, not as an accusation but as an explanation. So they couldn't pretend they didn't know why I was leaving. I emptied the last few items from my locker into my backpack. My locker stood completely empty, a visual representation of my departure. I placed the envelope on the top shelf, where it would be clearly visible. Then I went to the main office and submitted my transfer paperwork. Everything was in order. All my documents prepared. My aunt's guardianship papers, filed with the school district in her state. The process I'd been told would take weeks, had been expedited because of my academic record and the documented family issues. I spent the day in a strange state of calm. I attended my classes, said quiet goodbyes to the few teachers I was close to, exchanged contact information with the two friends I actually trusted. Everyone else? They were part of this world I was leaving behind. Tyler found me at lunch. His smirk was still there, that constant reminder of his perceived superiority. Still being stubborn, huh? Dad's really pissed now. He's talking about taking away your car, your phone, everything, until you apologize. I looked at him calmly. He can't take what I own. Something in my tone must have registered because his smirk faltered slightly. What's that supposed to mean? It means I bought my car with my money. My phone is on a plan I pay for. My laptop is mine. They have no legal right to take my possessions. He laughed, but it sounded uncertain. You've really thought this through, haven't you? What are you gonna do? Run away? They'll just bring you back. We'll see, I said, and walked away. The final bell rang at 3:15. I'd arranged to stay late, helping a teacher organize the supply closet, giving Tyler time to get home before me. I wanted him to be the one who found my locker first. I got the text at 3:45. It was from Tyler, which was unusual in itself. He never texted me, unless it was to mock me, or demand something. Where are you? I didn't respond. 3 minutes later. Your locker is empty. What did you do? Still didn't respond. Then my phone started ringing. Tyler calling. I declined it. 2 more texts in rapid succession. This isn't funny. Where are you? Then my dad calling. I declined that too. My mom calling. Declined. The messages started coming faster, more frantic. I could picture the scene at home. Tyler arriving first, probably going to my locker like he always did, to take something or leave some mocking note. Finding it completely empty. The panic setting in. Checking my room, finding half my stuff gone. I'd timed everything perfectly. I knew Tyler wouldn't immediately tell our parents. He'd try to figure it out himself first. Try to maintain control of the situation. But when he couldn't find me, couldn't reach me, he'd have no choice but to involve them. If you've experienced family favoritism, if you know what it's like to be invisible in your own home, hit that subscribe button right now. This community is for everyone who's ever felt like they had to fight for scraps of attention and love, while someone else got everything handed to them. You're not alone, and your feelings are valid. At 4:30, I drove home. I parked in the driveway and sat in my car for a moment, preparing myself for what was coming. I could see them through the front window, all three of them in the living room, clearly in the middle of an intense conversation. I grabbed my backpack and walked in. The scene that greeted me was almost satisfying. My mother looked panicked, her eyes red like she'd been crying. My father's jaw was clenched, that vein in his forehead throbbing the way it did when he was trying to control his anger. And Tyler? Tyler looked scared. Actually scared. The smirk was completely gone. "Where have you been?" my father demanded immediately. "Why is your locker empty? Why is half your room packed up? What is going on?" I set my backpack down calmly. "I've been at school. My locker is empty because I don't need it anymore. My room is packed because I'm leaving." The silence that followed was profound. My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father's face went from red to almost purple. Tyler just stared at me. "What do you mean you're leaving?" my mother whispered. "I mean exactly what I said. I've enrolled in Westbridge Academy on a full scholarship. I'll be moving in with Aunt Sarah until the semester starts, in 2 months. All the paperwork has been filed and approved." "You can't do that," my father said, his voice dangerously low. "You're 17. You can't just leave." "Actually, with Aunt Sarah's guardianship and the school district's approval, I can. I consulted with a lawyer. Everything is legal and binding. The paperwork is already processed." Tyler suddenly burst out. "Please tell me you haven't posted it." I turned to look at him, confused. "Posted what?" "The essay. The one about us. Please tell me you didn't submit it somewhere, didn't put it online or send it to the school, or—" And suddenly, I understood. He wasn't scared that I was leaving. He was scared that I'd expose them, that I'd make public the reality of our family dynamic, tarnish his golden child image. My father's expression changed as he realized what Tyler was afraid of. "Posted what?" he asked, but his smile, that condescending smile he'd been wearing since this whole thing started, vanished completely. "I didn't post anything," I said calmly. "My essay was private. It was for my own processing, my own understanding of my feelings. Unlike some people, I don't violate privacy and share personal things without permission." The dig at Tyler was intentional, and he flinched. "But you're leaving," my mother said, tears streaming down her face now. "You're actually leaving. Tina, sweetheart, can't we talk about this? Can't we work this out?" "There's nothing to work out, Mom. You made your choice when you denied me access to the office over a forced apology. You made your choice every time you dismissed my achievements and celebrated Tyler's mediocrity. You made your choice every single time you chose him over me. I'm just finally accepting reality and acting accordingly." "This is about the office?" my father asked incredulously. "You're throwing away your family over access to an office?" The audacity, the absolute audacity of reducing years of pain and neglect to a single incident. "No, Dad. This is about 17 years of being second best. This is about watching you celebrate Tyler's B's while ignoring my A's. This is about missing my award ceremonies for his basketball games. This is about him destroying my belongings and me having to apologize. This is about being told my feelings don't matter, that my pain isn't real, that wanting to be valued is being selfish." My voice was rising now, all that cold anger finally finding heat. "This is about writing a private essay, processing my legitimate feelings, and being punished for it, while Tyler faces zero consequences for invading my privacy. This is about you demanding I apologize for telling the truth. This is about realizing that no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, I will never be enough for you, because you've already decided Tyler is the child who matters." The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. My mother was openly sobbing now. My father looked stunned, like he was seeing me for the first time. Tyler's face had gone pale. "We never meant," my mother started. "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "Maybe not consciously. Maybe you tell yourselves you love us equally. But actions speak louder than intentions, and your actions have been screaming for years that Tyler is your priority, and I'm just the supporting character in his story." "Tina, that's not fair," Tyler said quietly. "They love you." I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. "Do they? Because love isn't supposed to be conditional. Love isn't supposed to require me to diminish myself so you can shine brighter. Love isn't supposed to hurt this much. We can change." my father said. And for the first time, he sounded uncertain. If we've made you feel this way, we can change. Don't leave. Stay, and we'll do better. You had 17 years to do better. You had countless opportunities to see me, really see me, and choose to value me equally. You didn't, and I can't wait around hoping you'll eventually decide I'm worth the effort. I picked up my backpack and headed toward the stairs to get the rest of my things. You're making a mistake, my father called after me. You're going to regret this. I paused on the stairs and looked back at him. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner. In my room, I grabbed the duffel bag I'd packed and took one last look around. This room had been my prison for so long. I felt nothing but relief to be leaving it. No nostalgia, no sadness, just pure liberation. When I came back downstairs, my mother tried one more time. Please, Tina, please don't do this. You're my daughter. I love you. If you loved me, you would have shown it when it mattered. If you loved me, you would have protected me, instead of demanding I apologize to my bully. If you loved me, you wouldn't be trying to stop me now, because you're losing control. You'd support my decision, because it's what I need. I walked to the door, my bags in hand. Tyler was still standing in the living room, looking lost. For a moment, just a brief moment, I felt a flicker of something for him. Not quite sympathy, but maybe sadness for what we could have been if we'd been allowed to be actual siblings, instead of competitors for our parents' affection. Tyler, I said, and he looked up at me. I hope you figure out who you are without needing to be better than me. I hope you find your own worth instead of deriving it from being the favorite. Because one day, you're going to be in the real world, where nobody cares that you were the golden child, and you'll have to learn to stand on your own merit. I genuinely hope you can. He didn't respond, just stared at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I looked at my parents one last time. I'll be staying with Aunt Sarah until school starts. My lawyer will be in touch about the formal arrangements. Don't try to stop this. Don't try to manipulate me into coming back. I need you to respect this decision even though you've never respected me. And then I walked out. I put my bags in my car, got in the driver's seat, and started the engine. Through the window, I could see all three of them standing in the doorway, watching me leave. My mother was still crying. My father looked angry and helpless. Tyler just looked confused. I backed out of the driveway and drove away from that house, that family, that suffocating dynamic that had crushed me for so long. And with every mile I put between us, I felt lighter, like I was shedding layers of pain and resentment and finally learning what it felt like to breathe freely. The drive to Aunt Sarah's was 6 hours. I'd told her I was coming, and she'd promised to have dinner ready and the room prepared. She'd also promised not to push me to talk until I was ready, to just let me decompress and process everything at my own pace. As I drove, I let myself cry. Not sad tears, not really, relief tears, grief tears for the family I'd wanted but never had, angry tears for all the years I'd wasted hoping they'd change. But also, underneath it all, tears of something like joy. Because I'd done it. I'd actually done it. I'd stood up for myself, stated my worth, and walked away from people who couldn't see it. My phone kept buzzing with calls and texts, but I didn't look at them. I'd respond when I was ready, if I was ready. Right now, this drive was mine. This moment of transition from who I'd been forced to be to who I was choosing to become. I thought about the boarding school, Westbridge Academy. It was prestigious, academically rigorous, filled with students who'd earned their places through merit and hard work. I'd be surrounded by people who valued achievement, where being smart wasn't something to downplay to make someone else comfortable. I'd have teachers who saw my potential and pushed me to reach it. I'd have a clean slate, a chance to build an identity that wasn't defined by being Tyler's less important sister. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface. That kind of deep hurt doesn't just disappear because you make a brave decision. I was angry at my parents for their blindness, their favoritism, their conditional love. I was angry at Tyler for exploiting his position, for never once standing up for me or acknowledging how unfairly I was treated. I was angry at myself for enduring it for so long, for not trusting my own worth enough to leave sooner. But I was also proud. Proud of the planning, the preparation, the execution. Proud of standing in that living room and speaking my truth without apologizing for it. Proud of walking away even though it was terrifying. Proud of choosing myself for the first time in my life. Around hour 3 of the drive, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Tina? It was Aunt Sarah. I'm calling from my work phone because I figured you might not be answering the family. I just wanted to check that you're okay, that you're still coming. Her voice, warm and concerned and completely free of judgment, made my throat tight. I'm okay. I'm about 3 hours out. Good. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. I know this was hard, but you did the right thing. Your mother called me, crying, asking me to convince you to come back. I told her I'd do no such thing. I told her it was about time someone in this family put your needs first, and if you were brave enough to do it yourself, the least I could do was support you. I had to pull over because I was crying too hard to see the road. Thank you. I managed. Thank you for believing me, for helping me, for not telling me I'm overreacting or being dramatic. Oh honey, you're not overreacting. I've watched them sideline you for years, and it's killed me. I tried talking to your mother about it, but she's so deep in denial about Tyler's golden child status that she can't see it. I'm just glad you got out before it completely destroyed your sense of self-worth. We talked for 20 more minutes, her reassuring me crying out years of pain and relief, until I felt steady enough to drive again. When I finally pulled up to Aunt Sarah's house, she was waiting on the porch. The moment I got out of the car, she pulled me into the kind of hug I hadn't experienced in years. Warm, unconditional, safe. Welcome home, she said. And for the first time in my life, the word home actually felt true. The first few weeks were an adjustment. I had to process everything, work through the complex emotions of relief and grief and anger and freedom. Aunt Sarah gave me space but also structure. She treated me like an adult capable of making decisions but also like someone who needed support and guidance. My parents kept trying to contact me. Calls, texts, emails, even letters sent to Aunt Sarah's house. My mother's messages were desperate, begging me to come back, promising change. My father's were angry, accusing me of being selfish and dramatic. Tyler's were confused, asking what he was supposed to tell people when they asked where I was. Even in his apology attempt, he made it about him. I didn't respond to any of them for the first month. I needed that space to clear my head, to remember who I was without their constant pressure and expectations. When I finally did respond, it was with a single email to all 3 of them. I explained that I wasn't ready for a relationship with them, that they'd cause serious damage that couldn't be fixed with promises and apologies. I told them I needed them to respect my boundaries, to stop the constant contact, to give me the time and space I'd asked for. I said that maybe, eventually, we could work toward some kind of relationship, but it would require real change, real accountability, real effort on their part. And until I saw evidence of that, I needed distance. My mother's response was more tears and promises. My father's was anger disguised as disappointment. Tyler's was a one-line text. Fine. Whatever. Aunt Sarah helped me process all of it. She was patient, kind, and most importantly, she validated my feelings, without trying to fix everything, or push me toward forgiveness before I was ready. Starting at Westbridge was like stepping into a different universe. The academic rigor was intense, but I thrived on it. I was surrounded by motivated, intelligent students who pushed me to be better, teachers who recognized my abilities and challenged me appropriately, an environment where achievement was celebrated, not resented. I made friends slowly but genuinely. People who liked me for who I actually was, not because we were forced together by geography or family. People who didn't know about my family drama, who saw me as just Tina, not Tyler's sister, or the disappointing daughter. I joined the debate team and discovered I had a talent for argumentation. All those years of having to defend my worth had apparently built some useful skills. I wrote for the school newspaper, joined the honor society, and even started tutoring younger students. For the first time in my life, I felt valued, seen, appreciated for what I brought to the table. The anger started to fade, slowly. It didn't disappear completely, and I don't think it ever will. That kind of hurt leaves a mark. but it transformed from something hot and consuming into something I could carry without it burning me alive. I learned to channel it into motivation, into determination to build a life so successful and fulfilling that it would stand as proof that I never needed their approval in the first place. 6 months after I left, my father reached out with a different kind of message. No anger, no demands, just a simple statement that he'd started therapy, that he was working on understanding his role in our family dysfunction, and that he hoped someday I'd be willing to talk to him about it. He didn't ask for forgiveness or reconciliation. He just acknowledged that he'd failed me and was trying to do better. It wasn't much, but it was something. A crack in the wall of denial. My mother's messages stayed the same. Desperate, emotional, full of promises but no real accountability. She wanted me back but didn't want to examine why I'd left in the first place. Tyler and I didn't communicate at all. Sometimes I wondered how he was doing, if he'd figured out who he was without someone to be better than. But mostly, I focused on my own life, my own growth. Now, a year later, I'm preparing for college applications. My grades are impeccable. My extracurriculars are impressive. My recommendations are glowing. I have options, real options, for my future, options I fought for and earned on my own merit. People ask me if I regret leaving. The answer is always no. Not for a single second. That decision saved my life, or at least saved who I could become. If I'd stayed, if I'd apologized and fallen back into that toxic dynamic, I would have been crushed eventually. My spirit would have broken completely. Instead, I'm here. I'm strong. I'm independent. I'm building a life on my own terms. Do I wish I had a better family? Of course. Do I wish my parents had valued me the way they valued Tyler? Every single day. Do I wish things could have been different? Absolutely. But I can't control their choices. I can only control mine. And I chose myself. I chose my future. I chose freedom over approval. And that's the message I want to leave you with. If you're in a situation where you're being devalued, where you're always second best, where your worth is constantly questioned or dismissed, know that you have options. You have power. You have the right to choose yourself. It won't be easy. Walking away from family, even toxic family, is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. People will judge you. They'll call you selfish or dramatic. They'll tell you that family is everything, that you should forgive and forget. But your mental health, your self-worth, your future, those things matter. You matter. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is prioritize yourself over people who refuse to prioritize you. I'm not saying everyone should cut off their family. Every situation is different. But if you're being hurt, if you're being diminished, if you're losing yourself trying to be enough for people who will never think you are, please consider that you deserve better. You deserve to be valued. You deserve to be seen. I want to hear from you. If this story resonated with you, if you've experienced something similar, or if you're currently in a situation where you feel invisible in your own family, leave a comment below. Share your story. Let's build a community of people who understand this specific kind of pain and support each other through it. And please, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. I'll be sharing more stories about overcoming toxic family dynamics, building self-worth, and creating the life you deserve. You're not alone in this. I see you. I understand. And I'm here to remind you that you are worth so much more than they've made you believe. This is Tina, signing off. Remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. And you deserve to survive. You deserve to thrive. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise.